Hi, this is Shanna with Florabella Collection. Today I'll be showing you from start to finish how I processed this image. This is my daughter on her first birthday on the beach, and it's one of my most popular images, very popular here on Flickr. So this is the ending product, and let me take you into Photoshop and we'll look at this straight out of the camera. Now, of course, I cropped it into a square, but other than that, it's straight out of the camera. So the first thing I did was I ran Vintage Summer from the Florabella Vintage action set for Photoshop and Photoshop Elements. So let's go ahead and click play. Okay, now that brightens it up quite a lot. So we're going to go ahead and click off the lighten layer. Let's see. We're going to, let's look at the vignette. Let's bring that up. That'll darken it up a bit. I'm bringing the vignette up a little bit, but I don't like how dark it is down here, and I'll fix that in a minute. Why don't we darken it a bit too? Let's see, let's bring up the darken layer about 20%. It darkens up her face a bit too much for me, so I'm going to bring the soft center light up to about 50% opacity. And right here on this layer mask, I'm going to click the layer mask, grab a black brush with my paintbrush, make sure that I have a soft airbrushy type brush, and with my opacity somewhere between 30 and 40, I'm going to take this is what the soft center light does. It really lightens up and gives it more of a look that the sun is shining through. The sun was behind her in this image, which is part of the problem with it. So I'm going to erase off of her shirt to bring back some detail in her shirt. I'm also going to, oops, I erased a little bit too much, just around her head here, just erase a little bit of the light. Now I messed up, and I'm going to press my backslash key above my enter key to show where I painted, shows in red. I'm just going to take a white brush and erase where I painted here on the black. Okay, and the way you switch your swatches is you can press the X key on your keyboard, black, white. Okay, so I'm on white. I'm going to go back to black, or you could also switch this little arrow right here. I'm going to click on the backslash key again to get rid of the red. That looks good to me. This sunlight layer really is what gives this the vintage tone. I'm going to raise that a little bit. This is probably about up to 35 because I really want it to look sunny. And if you find that it's a little too golden on her face, you can just erase some of that layer off her face as well, which I'm going to do here. Okay, now let's go back down to the vignette. That really made the bottom of her skirt too dark for me, so I'm going to click on that layer mask and I'm going to raise my opacity to about 75, and I'm going to start getting rid of some of that vignette at the bottom here. I don't really want it that dark at the bottom. A little bit lighter. And what I can do is I can copy this. If I want to take the layer mask and copy it down to the darken layer, I click Alt on my keyboard, and I'm just going to copy it down to the darken layer so it gets rid of the darkening down there as well. Okay, now that looks pretty good to me. The problem is the sky. The sky is blown out. There are no clouds. There were clouds that day, but because of the time of day I shot, you can't see the clouds. So that's where we're going to bring in this vintage cloud texture, which comes in the texture set 3, Florabella texture set 3. There's some bonus textures. Let me show you real quick. We have vintage bokeh 2, vintage clouds 2, and that's the one we'll be using. We have a vintage postcard 2, and this one is really neat. It doesn't go on black when you change the blending mode. All that shows is the white, and it's a French inspired postcard. And then we have a couple of old handwriting textures as well. But today we'll be looking at vintage clouds too, and we're just going to add some clouds back into the sky here. So I'm going to grab this, I'm going to drag it down to my Photoshop, and I'm just going to drag it right onto my image. And I'm going to click the check mark. And let's see, let's move it up. I have to try to figure out where the shoreline ends and the sky should begin. And it's about right here, but I think that I want this part of the sky really to show. And I'm going to press Control T and just make this larger so that the clouds appear a little bit bigger. And then I'm going to drag it over about maybe right there. Looks good. We can always move it around later. Okay, now I'm going to bring that down to about 50 just so we can see what's going on. And it looks as if some of these layers in the action have affected the clouds. So I'm going to bring the clouds up until I can see them. And that works right about there. So obviously we don't want clouds on our head. So we're going to add a layer mask. And the way you do that is you click the little layer mask icon down here, click on the layer mask, grab your black, your brush, and we obviously want to take it all the way off. So I'm going to bring my flow and my opacity up to 100 and take that off of her face first off. And we don't want any clouds on the balloon either. So let's go over here and carefully bring that off of the balloons. You want to be pretty careful. Might have to switch brushes here because you want it to look natural. I'm just going to get rid of the clouds on the balloons. And here we go. And once again, you can click the backsplash key and you can see what you're doing. Switch it to white. Make your brush smaller maybe and just go around the clouds a little bit so that you don't have a white line. Just to be really careful, you want red on the balloon. Okay, look at it again. That looks pretty good. Well, let's see. Go back to black and fix that area right there. Okay. Oops, right here. Now, I don't want the clouds that low, so I'm going to reduce my opacity down to about 40, 42. And let's start painting here. Okay, we want a gradual transition. And right now the clouds are in where the ocean is. So let's keep doing that. Okay, and now let's bring it down to about 20 just so it's gradual. And get rid of the clouds right here. Kind of makes it look more natural. And really, that's it. Let's look at the vignette, soft center. You can play with the saturation, bring that up if you want. The sunlight layer, let's see how that looks. That looks good. I have my clouds at 50% now. You can reduce it so it's very faint. You can make it more vivid if you want it darker. I like it at about 50. And that looks good to me. The other thing I probably would do, I probably would have done this first after the action, is go down to background and play sharpen defog just to give it a little bit more crispness there. And that's it. So let's look at our before. And the way I'm going to do this, I'm going to click Alt on my keyboard and click the background layer, before and after. What a difference. Okay, so again, this is Vintage Summer from the Vintage Action Set, and also Vintage Clouds 2 from the Florabella Textures Set 3. And these textures and actions can be found at florabellacollection.com. Thanks.